Are you ready? Well, let me tell you something. This homeboy and this homegirl are on the spot. Let me ask you something. What's your name?
Dino.
Where you from?
Money Making Manhattan.
And your name?
Rosemary.
And where are you from?
Money Making Manhattan.
You all look kind of fresh. Tell me something about your fashion. What are you wearing? What are these shoes?
These are a pair of Adidas with fat laces. That's the way we sport them.
What do you call the fashion overall?
Fresh.
Word. Let me ask you something. What about your fashion? What about your look? How do you describe it?
I call it, B-boy threads in a way. I got a Kangol one, a pair of Gazelles, a pair of white on white Adidas with fat laces.
How you rock your hat, man? How do you rock it?
I sport it fresh, Holmes.
Word.
Party people, can yo get funky? So Sonic Force, can yo get funky? The Zulu Nation, can yo get funky? Yeah, just hit me.
Being fresh is more important than having money. The entire time I grew up, it was like, I only wanted money so I could be fresh.
Fashion is a whole other thing. When you're young, there's like a sense of wanting to express yourself, an importance in individuality.
Hip-hop culture is not just about the music, it's also about a lifestyle. It's people who are free, who are exploring their creativity through a kind of free format of words, rhyme, language, music, or visual style.
The hip-hop culture, it had a boldness to it. You wanted everybody to know that you was down with this movement. You know, fresh to death, like $1 million.
Come on, we were big dreamers, all of us. Hip-hop was based on that dream of getting it and coming up out the ghetto, and the light at the end of the tunnel was always, the pot of gold, the clothes, the fashion.
Someone said to me, your clothes are your wings. So, if you want to fly, these dudes want to be fly. So they're going to put on something nice, and why shouldn't they? And by doing that with the style that the street guys have, once we put it on, it's a whole different story. You know what I'm saying? We put on your clothes and we take it to the next level. Animal kingdom and human being world is they parallel crazy. And peacocks, the way they flare up to attract their mate, and certain animals change up their whole appearance. It's all about that flare, that what you look like. How does it radiate off of you? And certain African chiefs were really ostentatious or really like out there with their garb, like kings, and how they were painted in Great Britain. And look at the outfits they're wearing. They look like royalty. They look like kings. So wardrobe is always been a thing,
If you go through the history of African-American culture, particularly in the 20th century, style, fashion, clothes were always a very prominent part of people's identity. It allows one to sort of define their own presentation to the world, so to speak. Even for people who maybe didn't have money, their own unique way of wearing something came to be a way for people to be distinct, to be identified in a crowd, to stand out. And I think over time, if you think about the role religion has played in African-American culture, going to church, the opportunity to dress up, it was expected that one would be dressed a certain way, that you would, look your best.
I want Jesus to walk with me.
The term Sunday best came from a time in slavery when, in order for slave owners to be considered good Christians, they had to make sure that their slaves had at least one good outfit so that they would go to church on Sunday, even though most of them were practicing other African indigenous religions.
Certainly, you did put your best on when you went to church on Sunday morning. When you got to church, you saw fashion merging with the music because the gospel choir was always the thing to watch. This is a very important factor of how you see style in the religious environment of the church.
If you talk about African American culture, music especially, jazz, blues, hip hop, any sort of genre of music, R&B, there's always a unique clothing style, a unique approach to fashion that goes with that.
In terms of how hip hop and urban hip hop and fashion and music have fused together to be a cultural influence, I think one has to look back and start with someone like Little Richard. Little Richard, to me, was an extravagant, outlandish black version of Liberace without the sequins. Little Richard was and is still an iconic symbol of freedom. Music can make you feel free, and watching a performer and what he says in his lyrics can make you feel free and give you a sense of your freedom.
Considering all that African Americans have experienced in American society over time, in spite of that, you know, this sense that if you look good, you feel good is something that I think speaks to why fashion and style has been so significant over the course of time.
This is the Bronx in New York. 1.5 million people live in this borough, equal to the population of Houston or Washington or San Diego. It's the home of the New York Yankees, the Bronx Zoo, and the Grand Concourse. It has also become the arson capital of the world.
A rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the moon. Her face and arms began to swell and Whitey's on the moon. I can't pay no doctor bills, but Whitey's on the moon. 10 years from now, I'll be paying still while Whitey's on the moon. You know,
the streets are where everything happens. It's where you can go and stake out a piece of who you are.
In the 70s in the South Bronx, everything was burning. I particularly lived in a building where I was the only tenant. My parents were the only tenants in a building that held 50 apartments. We had no heat, we had no hot water. There were killings up the yin-yang. Police brutality was worse than it is now. That's where gangs began.
They tried to take over one of my division, but they didn't quite make it, and we killed 2 of their guys. They tried to burn down my club.
We go, man, we rumble, we fight. Whatever we do, our boys, they, you know, get hurt, whatever, we pick them up and we keep going, that's it. When we get home, man, whatever colors we got or whatever, you know, we just take them, we throw them up on the pole and see which one of their members is bad enough to climb up there to try to get them.
It was extremely important on how you dressed. So you must, at all times, have black jeans. At the time, there were Lees, and motorcycle jackets. And on top of the motorcycle jackets were denim jackets, cut sleeves is what they called them.
Our conquered enemies. Those are our conquered enemies right there. Enchantress, Bronx, Road Javelins, Latin Eagles.
The art of customizing hip-hop, for the most part, got that from the so-called gangs or street families, without a doubt. I actually cut each of these letters out myself, put it on, and you have, of course, these are top and bottom rockers and a center patch. And all these conchos and doodads that I put on, these laces and these beads, this mink fur is all added on. And this was the classic outlaw look back then for the street gangs.
This is handmade. He made this himself.
Yes.
There are stitches here with cowhide that he made. The patches, you sew them on yourself.
Yeah.
This all began with that movie, Easy Rider. A lot of people won't admit it, but it is the truth. You know, people saw that. That gave you the sense of outlaw.
Most of the guys here are dressed like warriors. You know, and I hear you talking about your warlords and your war council. Who's the enemy?
None.
The establishment.
Right on, there it is.
Okay.
The establishment.
Who's
There we
the
go.
enemy?
Let me tell you, man, the enemy around the Bronx now, at this very moment, is the policeman. Yes, this is a warrior thing. Yes, it is. And we're here to defend our brothers and sisters against people like them. They're very racist, man. If you're gonna communicate, communicate, man. If you're gonna strike at us, we're gonna strike back.
When the Bronx was burning, gangs were rumbling. I mean, rumbling hard. One of the guys from the Ghetto Brothers, who was a peacemaker, named Black Benji, he went out there to make peace. And another club, a member of another club jumped out and said, "Peace my ass, peace shit," and hit him with a bat, and then they just continued to hit him until they killed him.
Cornell Benjamin, also known in the streets as Black Benji, was ambassador for the Ghetto Brothers. He was beaten to death when he tried to intervene between two other gangs. Instead of retaliating, the Ghetto Brothers convened a peace meeting of all the gangs in the South Bronx at the Boys Club on Hoe Avenue.
Even though we had colors, we were a gang, we'd never look for trouble, man. I could understand if they beat up Benji, but killing him is another thing. You took away one of our brothers' lives, man. The thing is, we're not a gang anymore.
They made a truce. And the truce worked for a while. And so the whole mentality changed, along with the atmosphere. Instead of the wars that we used to have, you know, club to club, it was I battle you. People would battle with their mouth right there on the spot. You had to spit.
I'm the D, Dada Rock on this shit court. I've been 9 years old playing this here sport. Pro Crush, AD, as high as degree, I got a better jump shot than Rick Barry.
Well, I'm the M. Like all the pretty girls, I serve your monkey ass like Earl the Pearl.
Pro Crush, I'm not the Cavs or GMC. I'm gonna stick it on the board, man, can't you see?
All these crews kept the fly style of like putting the name of their crew on their sweatshirt now. You know, it wasn't on the lead jacket, but now they were more refined, they were clean. Some of the beefs were now settled on the dance floor, in the train yards, on the microphone, on the turntables.
To hear the scratching, to hear the music, and to dance. A music that we had never heard of. A music that described us, described our struggle. You couldn't help but have to conform, for lack of a word, to the trend that was coming.
Which was?
Rap.
I was in awe. I lost my mind the first time I went to the Fever to hear these rappers and to hear these battles between Busy B and Kool Moe Dee, Grandmaster Caz. You know, up until that point, you had to use your imagination, or whoever got the tape, they're kind of telling you how it was.
I remember back in the back park, you had Melly Mel, and you would have KRS-One. You had them just back there just jamming. To me, it was just a natural party at the park. You didn't really know hip-hop was getting that big. You know, even back then, it was all about fashion. Like, even the outfits that Melly Mel would wear, it was outrageous at that time, but it was like, oh, he's a superstar. Oh, you know, he's a rapper, so that's what they do. You know, so he had a pass to wear all those crazy jackets and the cowboy boots.
Back in the days, if you find any old Cold Crush flyers, you will see that those cats used to dress up. They would get suited for a lot of their events. I mean, Armani suits, you know, gaiters and mink coats dripping to the floor. However, though, because of hip-hop being that new form of music and something that the youth catered to, basically everybody that was accustomed to wearing, you know, suits on stage just started, you know, dumbing it down to just keeping it just straight B-boy. majority of hip-hop artists really just dress b-boy style, where you got on the Lees and you got on the Pumas and a BVD tank top, you know, with your Gazelles and Kangol. It was all part of the hip-hop fashion.
Hip-hop fashion was kind of derived through the music, and it was kind of a we're not gonna follow the rules mentality, both in rap music and in fashion.
Say ho! Say ho, ho! Say ho, ho, ho! Now scream! 2 years ago, a friend of mine.
I remember in terms of making a statement and just really influencing me, seeing Run DMC on stage.
Got a big long caddy, not like a Seville, written right on the side and redressed to kill.
With their hats, their shell toes, their leather pants, and bottom line, you were always taught in school dress for success meant something else. And here they were breaking all the rules and winning. And I just remember that changing my life in the sense of everything I'd been taught was a farce to me from that point.
What we wear on stage is just what all the youth wear. That's what, you know, that's what all our fans wear. So dressing this way lets them know, oh, he's just like me.
Being in New York where it's, you know, so many people walking past each other on the street every day, you get a chance, it's like a runway. You know what I mean? All the streets were like runways for different clothing brands.
There was always all sorts of different flavors in the hood. There wasn't one definitive sort of style.
A guy from Brooklyn would have on Clarks, shark skins, Cazal glasses with no lens in it, and a Kangol crease like I don't know what. That was a Brooklyn cat. He didn't have to say anything. You knew he was from Brooklyn. A guy from Harlem would have on, let's say, a velour sweatsuit. And whatever brand the sweatsuit was from, he would have the sneaker to match. Same with the Bronx. The Bronx was a mix of Harlem and Brooklyn together. Queens had their own flow too.
I used to go uptown to Apollo, amateur night at the Apollo. You could be in that venue and you know that person's from Harlem, that person's from Queens. You know, you would just know by the way they were dressed.
And we were fresh. We were dipped, chilling, fresh dipped. No money in the pocket. Might have had 50 cents between us.
The insecurity of not having anything. It's the only time that you can showcase that you do. Like if you're going home, you got roaches and every 10 people living in an apartment, you know, the only way that you can kind of show that you have anything and feel some kind of a status is, you know, what you have on your body. What you have on your body is a reflection of how you're economically doing. You know, when as a young man, if you got fresh, crispy gear, then you're getting money. If you're dirty, you're not getting money. Everyone prefers to be clean. Everyone prefers to have, you know, different variations of clothing. So it's just a status symbol based on insecurity.
Right now, we are standing on the iconic Delancey and Orchard Street, a historic location that many of us used to shop at back in the 1970s. There's a documentary photographer way back then. I actually started taking some of my very first photographs right here in this block here. It's interpreted around the world as just being fly, being unique, being special. You know, for many, they just see it as a strong style. What I see is pride and dignity. Individuals that took great pride in the way they dress and the way they carry themselves. I wanted the world to see something unlike they were seeing before, that despite people's condition, they're still able to maintain a great degree of integrity, and it's shown by the way people dress and the pride they take in having clean sneakers on, having fresh gear on that was color coordinated. That made individuals feel good, and it helped to resonate and inspire people globally to even want to dress that way.
You couldn't get a discount anywhere except on the Lower East Side.
This was like one big department store, but stretched down 7, 8 blocks.
The one thing that they had that they could show off to the world was their clothing. So it was very important. They may not have had the best apartment. They may not have had the best car, but they had the best clothing. And it was very important to them because when they put that suit or that leather jacket on or the mink jacket on or whatever it was, they were king.
For a lot of people who, may grow up in the projects or whatever, they want to stand out, so they wear loud colors. I think the colors in hip hop came from graffiti. Whatever the cans of paint, what colors were available for painting, those became the cool colors. You did your own thing, you could paint your own design on the back of your jean jacket. Jean jackets were the first canvas for hip hop.
What was really, really popular was doing names on the side of your jeans. And that's what I was doing a lot of. People paid me to put their names on the side of their jeans.
Standing by the speaker, suddenly I had this. Fever wasn't me either, summer madness. Cause I just can't stand around, so I get closer, and the closer I get, the better it sound. My mind start to activate, rhymes collaborate. Cause when I heard the beat, I just had to make.
I remember coming across a Black Beat magazine with LL Cool J on the cover. And inside there was an article about his sweatshirt that he was wearing, which was like an airbrushed portrait of himself, as a b-boy. And it was painted by a guy named King Fade from the Shirt Kings.
This is the shirt here that gave the Shirt Kings notoriety. When LL Cool J, who's a major, major, major star, wore this shirt in every photo shoot that you could imagine, it took what we were doing in Southside Jamaica, Queens, all around the world. It made the world notice who we were. What Shirt Kings were about were drawing things that we saw, in our community. We basically remixed them. We turned them into a joke because this became our reality, So we put Mickey on crack. When times are bad, a lot of people tend to gravitate towards art. Art takes your mind to another place. Shirt Kings, it allowed me to not become something else.
Shirt Kings and Dapper Dan took what we were thinking in our imaginations, they put it into reality. The belt that I'm wearing here, this style stuff, Dapper Dan was putting together on your shoe. Dapper Dan was putting together on your baseball cap. The LV was on your baseball cap, on your pouch that hung from your neck. Dapper Dan would use that where Louis Vuitton wouldn't. People who could afford it were going to Dap instead of Louis. You know what I'm saying? You might walk into Louis Vuitton and be looked down at, especially in 1980s. So you go up to Dap, you feel at home, and he's gonna cater to your needs and take care of you.
I believe urban luxury fashion started with Dapper Dan, and people wanting to aspire to wear these luxury brands that were unattainable at the time. And he figured out a way to make it attainable. What Dan did was basically do what we did with music. We sampled songs, looped them, and made it our own. He figured out a way to do it in clothing.
Now, let me tell them a story. 30 years ago. Yeah. 30 years ago, this whole block was full with Bentleys, Rolls Royces, cars you never even heard of. To come see this man. Because he was the first one taking designer clothes, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and making suits and stuff out of it. Took the leather and did it, made pants. Everybody coming with $1,000 pants. I couldn't believe it. I never bought a pant. I couldn't afford no $1,000 pants. But this is the first man that did this.
The only way for us to make it in this business, which I realized early on, was when you got raw goods, that raw goods, if I have a roll of fabric, that fabric is anything I want it to be. Anything that a designer didn't have, I would embellish it for them, you know? I blackenized it, you know? I made it so that it'll look good on us. I took it where they would never take it. Louis Vuitton wasn't even making clothes like that at the time, you know? I didn't even realize the impact that it was having because I just wanted to serve my community. I just wanted to serve the black people. I would be satisfied just with the neighborhood I was in, you know what I mean? Getting the respect from them.
Back in the day, it was about high-end brands. If it wasn't the actual high-end brand, it was Dapper Dan.
I got the seats done, the whole upholstery inside my car done black and red Gucci.
I kind of had to make me a shearling once with the extra deep pockets, just in case I needed to have guns in them. But that's what, you know, you could do those kind of things, and then it cost $2,000. I thought I was the man.
I was open 24 hours a day for 8 years. We might take a little 3-hour break, and for the rappers, I would have the gate down here. So all they had to do was pull it. Rappers or the hustlers come through, all they had to do is pull the gate up and roll them. And my policy was to run to the gate. Eric B., Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie, Salt and Pepper, Guy, Teddy Riley. Hey, Teddy, I ain't mad at you. I still got a check for $700 that bounced. What put the nail in the coffin is, first they raided me broke. Part 2 was blank out anything I do on Yo MTV. And you know, Yo MTV gave birth to the rap game. You know, that was their coverage.
He should have came out with a Dapper Dan brand. He definitely could have, I think if he knew the business.
Dapper Dan was Tom Ford before Tom Ford. He should have been hired instead of shut down. He really should have been hired as a designer for one of those elite clothes brands back then because he had the foresight to do back then what they just started doing maybe 10 years, 5 years after him.
My Adidas walk through concert doors and roam all over Coliseum floors. I stepped on stage at Live Aid. All the people gave and the poor got paid. And out of speakers, I just speak. I wore my sneakers, but I'm not a sneak. My Adidas touched the sand of a foreign land. With mic in hand, a code took command. My Adidas ND close as can be. We make a mean team, my Adidas and me. We get around together, we're down forever, and we won't be had when worn in bad weather. My Adidas.
The most important thing was sneakers, you know, because if you had some whack sneakers, it was just a difficult time, you know.
A lot of stuff was always built off, you know, your shoe game. That's what was important. You built your outfit off your shoe game.
This is what I like to call sneaker heaven. I could wear a brand new pair of sneakers every day for 7.5 years. That's a fact. When I was a kid, I asked my mother for a pair of sneakers one day. She bought me a sneaker called the Mark V. Nobody alive knows what this shoe is. It's a Mark V, and I thought I was the shit. Like, I thought I was the hottest guy in the world because my name was on the shoe. My name is Mark. And I went back to the block, and they laughed me off the block because it was like a $10 favor shoe or one of them crazy shoes, and I got destroyed. When it comes to getting fresh, when it comes to hip-hop, when it comes to anything, man, getting fresh starts with your feet first.
I remember I went to Catholic school, so you had to wear shoes every day. So me and my friend Zeke, we would fake sprain ankles so that we could wear one sneaker and had a crutch and then wear one shoe just to show that we got the newest Jordans. Like, yeah, you see I got that Jordan on.
Shoes that you could get killed for, too. There was one question you never wanted to hear when somebody you didn't know rolled up on you, and that was, what's your size?
They would go like this, yo, what size you wear? And if you were live, you would say, your size. Why? Yeah, your size. Why you want to know? If you were live, if you was a chump and a sucker, you'd probably be quiet and probably get punched in the face and get vicked.
would vic you for your shoes, and yeah, it wasn't a pretty sight.
I did get robbed on Simpson Street one time. Yeah, now that I remember, I was leaving.
You needed that patch on.
I was leaving. I was just leaving the Jew Man. And these guys got the drop on me. I don't know what I was thinking about going up to the Bronx by myself. But.
I knew a kid up in the Bronx. I was like, they sell these Air Forces ones that you don't see in Manhattan. Let's go get those. So we go up to Jew Man and cop the white and brown with Air Force Ones. So.
After my mother gave me my allowance, begged my grandfather for extra 20 cash so I can go get the shoe dyed at Jew Man or whatever the case may be. It was always there for me, always. You always wanted to be seen, and you always wanted everybody to know that you got that, what we call swag now. You got that flavor back then, or, you know, you're dipped, you're fresh, you're the one.
It was a competition just like everything else in the hood.
The way the whole fat lace shit started was we used to take laces that came with the shoe, like Pro-Keds or Converse, stretch the shit out of them, starch them with starch, and iron them. It was a ritual. It took like a half hour, right, to get your shit right. And then the way you laced them in your shoes was a whole different sort of science, you know? The manufacturers, when they lace their laces, they go the other way. Under and up. Us, we go up and under. And that's a very clear way to tell who's hip, you know, in terms of like street flavor on the hip hop tip.
I've been on the cover of Village Voice, a 5-page article based on sneakers. I would say this shoe collection is worth over $500,000.
Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario?
Hey, yo, Bo knows this, and Bo knows that. But Bo don't know jack, cause Bo can't rap. Well, what do you know? The D-Dog is first up to bat. No batteries included, and no strings.
In the late 80s, growing up in New York, you know, kids were into fashion, and hip-hop obviously influenced everything that we did. But, you know, at that point, it basically meant getting different, you know, designer labels like a Polo or something like that, and wearing it in a particular way.
You wasn't just a regular black kid rocking polos, but we saw those things like New Balance, members only. If it was a nigga in the hood rocking that, it's because he saw them rocking it and then made it his own style and brought it in the hood, and then other folks emulated that. For us, that's kind of like a natural thing.
I remember at the Taste of Chicago when I first saw Reginald, and he had like the all-over print polo with the camo pants, with the Wallies, with the fedora, and like a Lazarus chain, a gold chain, gold fronts. And I was still like sewing Izod's on my shirt and stuff. I remember just that moment moved me so much, and I just had to like get my fresh up to a whole nother level. I realized at that point we wasn't in, you know, a suburb. I wasn't in a suburban high school anymore.
When I was in school and I went to Brown and I had a stipend, the first thing I would do was go to Yves Saint Laurent. You know, I would, you know, take my stipend money and go to Louis Vuitton or Gucci. You know, urban young people are always attracted to or addicted to fashion because it is an expression of aspiration. And because you grow up in a world where fashion is so important. And a lot of people who are in hip hop have aspirations, and aspirational is, can you go into that store and buy that brand?
When you think of Versace, Ralph Lauren, it seems like it's far away. It's a dream in somewhere where you would like to go. And those people could care less about you, you know. But it seems like if I can grab that and wear that, like I'm living a fantasy.
The Puerto Rican, how low can you go? Thurston Howe, exclusive little item. The Puerto Rican, how low can you go? Thurston Howe, exclusive little item. The Puerto Rican.
Low Lifes originated from the Marcus Garvey Village in Brownsville and St. John's and Utica Place in Crown Heights, you know? Two separate boosting crews or getting fly crews, you know, that came together and created a big brotherhood, you know, that influenced the world of fashion and hip-hop abroad.
A booster is somebody who goes to any store, but in this case, expensive stores, and steals. And then, you know, it might be a $600 jean and you can buy it for $100 from him.
Boosting is anybody who shoplifts. We were robbing and stealing and all that, even each other. There were a lot of people where, you know, rob your whole house, man, for everything you had. And just the polo, they're not taking anything else. I remember taking the train. We'd take the train to Gold Rush, B. Altman's, 34th Street. Soon as the train doors open, everybody rushing into the store, racing to get the stuff. People running into the street carrying all these clothes, some clothes getting dropped. Then you see superheroes coming out of nowhere trying to help, you know, protect the store. And then we run back to the train station and run onto the train tracks and run to the next stop to get away, you know?
I knew about Low-Lives, but I didn't know to what extent. And then I met Thurston Howell III, you know, he came out with all this stuff and it was all polo. And I was like, this is crazy. Where did you get this? You know, I didn't even know polo made this.
It was an evolution of the fashion. It transcended from the likes of the Benetton and the Izod Lacoste. We were really attracted to those things before we were touching the polo. And the thing with the polo was they didn't sell it in no ghettos or in your local, you know, stores in your neighborhood. And you had to go to the high-end stores on Fifth Avenue and all that. So if you went and you got some of that stuff and you came back in the hood, you was like, you rich. You know, we living in the projects, man. I ain't even have furniture in my house, man, but I had polo everywhere, you know?
What you see is a classic case of low-life syndrome. This is right here, the big low symbol right here, the big polo, Ralph Lauren right here, you know what I'm saying? Represent right here, another low symbol, wow!
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you for that cream polo sweatshirt with the cream chenille letters across the front that I wore in college, shitting on everybody there. Thank you for allowing me to shit on so many people. Thank you, Ralph.
We were like free promotions for him.
Tommy Hilfiger would show up in the hood and open up a trunk with, you know, clothes and hand them out to, you know, it was like the drug dealer, you know, giving you a free hit. And then you're like, I want more. And so you're looking for it and you're buying it, you know. It was smart, you know, he knew what he was doing, you know, they knew exactly what they were doing, you know. They didn't pay Grand Poobah, who broke all that Helly Hansen and Hilfiger shit.
They didn't offer official endorsement deals to any of these artists. But, I mean, Tommy Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren, they made a lot of money off these guys.
Being a promotion, walking around in the clubs, we were influencing the rappers in the golden era and you know, them seeing us in the clubs, 50 guys wearing the same shirt. When the rappers were doing, they were copying it and they were doing it in their videos, and then that was, you know, going around the world. They were influencing the world through that.
Stop what you're doing, cause I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to. I look funny, but yo, I'm making money, see? So yo, world, I hope you're ready for me. Now gather round. I'm the new fool in town, and my sound's laid down by the underground. I drink a bottle of Hennessy you got on your shelf, so just let me introduce myself.
With the explosion of hip-hop music in the 1990s, hip-hop starts moving into becoming mainstream, which means television, through music videos, through music television. We had Ralph McDaniels well before MTV documenting our stories, bringing them into our home every day after school at 3:30. That's what we watched, and that's where we started seeing it. And then we had concerts. We had television shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and In Living Color that now started showing the looks that were not just designer brands that we were used to seeing on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, but now we're seeing brands that we can relate to. So there was a number of things that kind of catapulted this look to become mainstream.
The music came and put a light on us, where we been dressing in the hood. But without hip hop, there was no light looking in the hood to see what the fuck you got on. You know what I'm saying? Nobody was, what these folks in the hood, nobody cared about that. They only cared about that by the time when it was yeah. And what did that do? That birthed the streetwear culture.
I mean, the first time we started seeing that urban really had some dollars behind it was through Cross Colors. Here was a brand that was actually started in California by a Black fashion executive who actually came out of the surf business, who realized that there was something going on because he would come to New York all the time and go on the subway and visit Spike Lee's store in Brooklyn, and he was seeing how young men were wearing their clothes.
I was doing business with a store called Merry-Go-Round Enterprises. I started talking to the buyers there about who their customers were, who they sold to. It was mainly what the stores referred to as an urban customer. But for me, it was the African-American customer. I rode the subways in New York because at the time I felt rap music was coming from New York, and that was a definite lifestyle and culture at that time. They were wearing like jeans that were 4 or 5 sizes too big. And I go, oh, that's interesting. They're using a belt to hold them on. So I thought, well, I could do something like that where it was a baggy silhouette. However, the waist was a waist that would fit that person's body. My medium was a large. My 32 was a 36 silhouette with a 32 waist for a bottom. No one is really saying, you know, I'm designing for this customer, I'm designing for this market, I'm designing for streetwear. I designed from the ghetto, for the street, and those were all the thoughts going through my head.
Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I
hired a marketing guy at the time by the name of David Stinnett, and I said, hey, why don't you call up, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and see if they're interested in wearing our clothes. And I'll never forget, he came back and said, Carl, you won't believe what's happening. They love your stuff. They were looking for something like this, but didn't know it exists, and they love it. They want more. 2 or 3 nights later, there he was on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wearing our clothing.
Banks residents have a holly jolly Christmas. My brother, you got a problem with my lights? Why don't you come tell me that to my face then? Hey, we can do whatever you want to do. It's your world, squirrel. I'm just trying to get a nut.
And that was the beginning of it. And the next thing, In Living Color called us. Oh, we saw your stuff. And then later what I was told, well, you changed the whole spec of the young men's market. Fitted silhouettes aren't working anymore. So I think the industry began to change their specs, where, everybody else started doing larger sizes.
92 is really 90 is when the baggy jeans started, but 92 is when you know for sure it had impacted. Everybody's pants were big.
I was probably about a freshman in college or so when it was at its peak, and this concept that there was a clothing brand that united young people in thought as well as races was very intriguing for me. The idea of offering clothes that made you proud of your ethnicity. Here was a time where women were really wearing those same oversized clothes just as much as the men were. And I actually think of TLC before I think of anyone else wearing cross colors, let's say, and as being an influence in wearing a men's brand.
No one really catered to the women when it came to trying to dress us. It was a male's game. But I remember the first time I saw TLC wearing cross colors. I was like, oh, got my attention, let me see. Made me want to bring out more of the woman in me. They really created a spark. Like, wait a minute, I want to shine too. I need some bright colors.
It became clothing for everyone. It was celebrities loved it because we embraced celebrities. We embraced all the music artists. And they never, was there any company that ever reached out to artists and said, wear my clothing? I think we were probably the first ones to do it. So we were definitely onto something.
Cross Colors within 4 years went from 0 to $100 million. So the success of Cross Colors then birthed a series of other entrepreneurs that decided we want to create our own brands too. So out of Cross Colors came this phenomenal group of individuals, from Jeff Tweedy, celebrity stylist June Ambrose, Tony Shellman, who ended up going on to launch several brands from Mecca to Paris Nation, April Walker, and I can go on and on and on.
We wanted to get into the denim business, and we did our research, and we found out that Guess and Jabot was manufactured in California. So a friend of mine's, AZ, he found a factory that was manufacturing Guess. So he flew me out here, and we stood outside the factory till the workers got off of work. And, you know, we didn't really know our Spanish that well, so we was like, trabajo máquina, mucho dinero. So we kept saying it to a bunch of people that kept walking away. So one guy says, oh, you want me to sew and you pay me more money? A Spanish guy, so he spoke English, and this kind of was our linkage to everything. There's a guy named Juan. So he put us up on the denim spots. He showed us where to get the fabrics from, and we just started moving and shaking. So we took the New York hustle and brought it to California. We had a store on Crenshaw Boulevard. Some entrepreneurs decided to come into our store and rob our store at gunpoint, and took all of our samples, took everything we had. And at that point, we had a choice to either stay out here or go back to California, or go back to New York. So one day we went to the Palladium, and Cross Colors was in the middle of a fashion show, and I saw Carl Jones, and I asked him, yo, Carl, how do I get my stuff in department stores? I want to really get my brand out there. He's like, if you come to my office tomorrow, I'll be willing to talk to you. I came to his office, and within the first 15 minutes, he was just like, you know, I heard about your stuff. If you need some help, I'll be willing to help you out. 2 weeks later, we had a deal, and he invited me to become partners with him in the business.
He was very selective in who he gave his clothes to. He gave it to the Biggie Smalls. He gave it to the Tupacs. He gave it to the more sophisticated guys. When Cross Colors was more TLC, Snoop Dogg, and things of that nature. So we sort of made sure that they sort of had a different vision, and the branding was slightly different in how we market the brand.
I did a Karl Kani ad, and that was the coolest thing that you could be involved in, like who was in the next Karl Kani ad. And it just made the dream accessible. It made me feel like, you know, if he could do it, I could do it.
He had a sophisticated level. He understood clothing, he understood tailoring, he understood quality, and he wanted the best.
There's a lot of learning obstacles for us. We were young. I was 22 years old. I didn't make a lot of money back then. You know, we was kind of learning the ropes a little bit.
Stores were afraid of this culture. They really were. They really didn't want this customer in this store. You know, these stores was highly traded, you know, white suburban and very traditional.
For a long time, department stores were fighting it. At the time, we were called the urban designers or hip-hop designers. They couldn't break into department stores. It was Tommy Hilfiger, Polo, all the big names. The music industry is, you know, making those names big and bigger by constantly talking about them. But, you know, when we get our own brands, we're not, you know, being let on the floor to compete with that.
It was very difficult when I was running Karl Kani to even for department stores to even look at our product, because they didn't know, you know, most department stores put a name to, you know, a product. And at that time, it was men's sportswear, men's traditional, and men's suits, and that was pretty much it. So when we came out with Karl Kani Cross Colors, they really didn't know how to identify it. So what they did was, whoever wore the clothes, Too Short, or Snoop Dogg, or anyone on the West Coast, they considered it gangwear. Then they toned it down and they called it streetwear. Then it became urban. So imagine, you know, this buyer who's never been to the streets in their life, all of a sudden carrying a line that's considered gangwear. And then you gotta associate what type of consumer demographics is walking in that store.
You know, retailers would tell me, your sweatsuit is the same as Fila's sweatsuit. Why should I pay yours? I don't know if it was race as much as not understanding what we were doing and being into, at that time, hip hop, period, The vibe was, this is a fad. It's not gonna last, from music to fashion.
I'd have black and white buyers say the kind of same thing. They're like, you know, black people won't buy that, or white people won't buy that. That's what they would say. People perceive me as like a wigger. I would get that a lot. So it didn't surprise me when the buy side had the same kind of apprehension. When the buy side of building my business was kind of like, little cynical, like,
They really didn't want this consumer in their store, but they had to because the demand was there. And Carl Jones and Carl Kanai created the demand that you had to carry my product.
We were the first brands to have our own shops in Macy's next to Ralph Lauren and Polo and Tommy Hilfiger and Nautica.
Mr. Carl Kanai.
Stores realized what the income of and the outcome of this could have been and was. So they took heed to it and put it in, and bought a lot of it.
1996, this was the start of the business making a transition from being a mom and pop specialty store business to being a department store business.
The world is yours. The world is yours. It's mine, it's mine. Whose world is this? It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Whose world is this? The world is yours. The world is yours. It's mine, it's mine.
It was crazy time. It was like, it was on fire. Hip hop was growing fast. It was a movement going on, fight power. Hip hop was just exploding in every way and any way. And so as far as the apparel was concerned, it was kind of like, there was no main focus. It was just whoever had an apparel company basically was part of the movement and they got to win. It was crazy. It was crazy to be a part of it.
Yeah, Video Music Box, Friday Night Street Party, your Uncle Ralph in the place. I'm out here in Las Vegas at the Magic Convention. It's a clothing convention.
Magic is where all the clothing stores and companies and all that come, and they all, you know what I'm saying, come, the buyers come and cop, and then they put it in a store near you, you know what I'm saying?
We went to this thing called the Magic Show in Las Vegas. We didn't have enough money to exhibit in the trade show, or even walk into the trade show. And we wrote $300,000 worth of orders out of this little hotel room 5 miles away from the trade show. We then come back. We don't have any money. We get turned down by 27 banks. We go into my house. We take all the furniture we can. We sell what we can. The rest that we cannot sell, we burn in oil drums. It takes about 2 weeks because we want to get the furniture out of there. And we move industrial sewing machines in there, and we hire a staff. We slept in sleeping bags next to those machines, and for a year, we would just crank FUBU out of the house. And that started to populate the stores, and the stores started to sell polo fleece and sweatshirts in August in Texas. And then people started to realize who we were.
FUBU was able to do what Cross Colors did it in terms of volume. So while its predecessor at its max, at its peak, did 100 million, and that was in 1990, less than 7 years later, you're talking about a brand that proved itself at $350 million. It went beyond just the local kids in the hood.
You know, the leaders in that sort of really naturally used the media and used TV properly was FUBU. I mean, although videos were being dominated by Carl Kanai, FUBU was clever enough to put a hat on LL in a Gap commercial, changed everything, just changed everything.
LL was always somebody who made his own rules, and because he felt that the Gap at the time didn't really respect the culture or him, he put FUBU in the Gap commercial.
Once you hear the Gap calling, you can't resist the shopping. Big ballin', not stopping, yes, y'allin'. Jeans popping in every mall in town and city. GAP, gritty, ready to go for us, by us, on the low.
The Gap ended up spending $30 million on that commercial, and it became basically a FUBU commercial.
Pac used to wear my clothes all the time, even before I met him. So I wanted to meet this dude, man, because, you know, Pac was all over the place. So AZ again, he set up a meeting. So we go up to Pac's room. The whole time we in there, he didn't even look me in my face when I walked in the room. He just said, "What's up?" He was typing the script to a movie. As he's typing the script to the movie, he's having a very intelligent conversation with me about Black culture, hip hop, things like that. The only time he stopped typing Because when I asked him, I said, Pac, so like, how much would you charge me to do an ad? He stopped. He said, man, I ain't gonna charge you, you black. I charge my people for nothing. And the man kept his word. 2 weeks later, we was in New York. We did the photo shoot. It was all love. And ever since then, we became tight. And Tupac was one big reason why I helped my brand internationally and globally, because they worship him like a god overseas in Europe.
I've seen the influence of hip-hop fashion all over the world. Japan and places in Europe, all over Europe. It's how they relate to the music. They don't just listen to it, they embody it.
Dans mes contradictions, il manque d'imagination, le faiseur de pluie, savoir si demain viendra, les rêves qui ont aimé.
When you don't understand English, what makes you go to buy an album? The look, the fashion, will transmit something you can't explain. I remember the pictures with the black suit, leather, the Kangol, the glasses, and the Adidas.
When I was back in Italy, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was one of the only kids probably in Italy that was already listening like hip-hop music and rap music. I was getting clothes and getting music from my friends that had opportunity to go to New York and buy them when I already was not yet popular in Europe. And I always loved it because that again is about freedom, is about, supporting the roots of the culture.
In the international market, the hip hop culture's there, there's demographic consumers there, the clothes is there.
You cannot talking about hip hop only in the US anymore. Hip hop is not from the US anymore. It's come from Berlin, it's come from Tokyo, it's come from Hong Kong, it's come from Paris, it's come from everywhere. It's only one world anymore. One world for the money, one world for the music, one world for the fashion. Everybody got the same shit in the same time everywhere in the world. It's business. So we don't talking about culture, we don't talking about style, we don't talking about fashion, we don't talking about music. We're talking about marketing and timing. If you are in the right timing, with the right marketing, you're gonna do $1 billion. That's it.
I have an appointment with Russell Simmons. Can you call him?
Okay, sure.
We currently represent maybe 40 artists. They've all had some success, some more than others. I think people, as they hear it more, they understand it more and will appreciate it more.
A person that must be given a great deal of credit is the man who was married to the fabulous model, Kimora Lee Simmons, Russell Simmons. What Russell Simmons and Kimora Lee Simmons did as a couple was extraordinary, not only for the hip hop culture, but for the fashion culture, for the urban fashion culture. What they created with their brand, the Fat Farm product was amazing.
The music culture smartened up with a guy named Russell Simmons, who comes with Fat Farm. And then the people that's around him saying man, how much they made off of that? And then you have all these different things. That's a domino effect of, knowing what our culture wants and how much money is made.
When mainstream American culture discovered hip hop, they began trying to sort of, sell bits and pieces of it in any way they could. And this is when you got all of these, fashion labels associated with rappers.
At Rockware, I would try to show a lifestyle that people would buy into. That's what I was ultimately trying to do. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I don't want it to be looked at as we're good for urban or black clothing. I wanted to compete with everyone else in the world.
Rocawear was around well before Sean John, but it wasn't until we saw the numbers of Sean John that I think Rocawear was able to benefit from that. By the time Sean John came on the scene, urban brands were starting to become a bit saturated in the fashion market, and I think Sean John really injected the industry with a new pulse.
I think for Sean John, you know, my whole muse and motivation was what I grew up seeing in the streets, what I grew up seeing going internationally and how they reacted to my style, what I was just seeing in my communities and taking it and combining it also to what I was seeing on the runways from all over the world. It was the embodiment of swagger, you know what I'm saying?
When Sean first started doing fashion and having fashion shows, they were some of the most extraordinary moments during Fashion Week.
Everybody always asks me why I started designing clothes. See, I basically just wanted to look good, man. You know, to be perfectly honest, I always just like looking in the motherfucking mirror, looking at myself and saying, boy, goddamn, you look good. You know? With Sean John, I didn't want to just make it a fashion brand. I wanted to make it a lifestyle. I wanted to make sure that we were able to go from the block to the boardroom, that if you had a job interview, you were able to represent yourself the right way. If you were going to church, you were able to represent yourself the right way. Fresh from head to toe, you know, and so we didn't take no prisoners. If Ralph was doing it, Gucci was doing it, Sean John was able to do it, and we wanted to do it just as good as them or even better.
At that time, we were up against brands like Mecca and Fat Farm and Rocawear, and we were more sophisticated. Again, the quality was better. It was toned down as far as the coloration. The fit was different, and the price were a little more higher.
He said, hey, guess what? I'm gonna do urban fashion, but I'm not gonna do urban fashion. I'm gonna do high fashion in the urban space.
At its heart, Sean John was about aspiration. And so he did this high-low thing at such a big level and turned it into this global brand. He also won the CFDA award for menswear, which was huge. I remember being at the company and like realizing how big it was, understanding that he was the first African-American to win that award. And you're at, you know, and he was a hip-hop artist crossing over, winning, you know, the most prestigious fashion award for the year.
Winning that award was bigger than Sean John. It was bigger than me. You know, when we won that award, as I said, we won that award. We all won it together.
He was able to show that a music brand can make major volume sales. Now we're starting to see 3-digit sales from a music-inspired line that just kind of opened the floodgates. All of a sudden, it became a free-for-all, and there wasn't a celebrity, urban or not, that didn't get in the business.
Well, basically, the start of Wu Wear, my expectation of it was nothing other than really self-expression and stylization. A stylization that was, you know, there to accompany our music. But I also wanted Wu-Tang to be kind of like its own Polo or Tommy Hilfiger.
Outkast is like, I'm not gonna keep wearing everybody else's stuff when I can have my own line. That makes sense. But then if you don't pull together the right team, that line is not gonna last. And you know what? You might get real estate in that store for 6 to 18 months, but you're just taking away another designer's real estate that's really real about it and can give some good product.
You weren't gonna wear shady. Just were not. I mean, there's nothing that made you think that shady was, you know, into fashion. You know, as a consumer, you sort of just knew it was a money play.
They put $1 million behind all these different brands, and because they had a hot song. You're as hot as your music. When you're a musician coming out with a clothing brand, they're not really serious about this. They're putting out T-shirts, they're putting out this. You're as good as your brand, as your music is. If your music starts going south, so does the clothing.
The fashion industry is fickle. It goes up and down just like the economy. What happened? A number of factors. You had an oversaturation of brands. You had brands moving too fast into doing the department store business.
When all the urban brands started to hit, the same stores that used to buy 90% of our collection started ordering 40 or 30% of our collection, because now it's a floor space competition for newer brands.
If you're a designer and you really want to stay true to who you are, but yet you have a VIG that you have to pay or a partner who has another agenda, you're eventually gonna clash.
We had a partner. Our partner probably had never seen it go so fast and so big, so he wanted to drive at the time all the time, and we were just bumping heads constantly.
People were offering me deals and I was turning them down because I'm like, at 3%, 4% of my company? You mean you're gonna give me 4% of my, sound like slavery, B.
Once somebody's paying for your dream, it's not your dream anymore, it's their dream. I didn't like the way it was made, and then I didn't like really what the perspective of it was, or it was being catered to. You know, I didn't like big logos all day.
You can't just say a hip-hop king is gonna become the next Louis Vuitton house. Louis Vuitton was in there over 130 years ago, some 100-odd years ago.
Ralph Lauren Polo doesn't disappear when a particular style of clothing is no longer popular. So you're talking about, you know, the difference between companies that were able to establish themselves in a society when African Americans were discriminated against economically in business and such. I mean, in order to have Levi's has been around, you know, for how long? Forever, seemingly, right? Well, it would have been impossible to have had an African American label making jeans as far back as Levi's in American society. Unfortunately, they've not had the staying power.
Thanks for all the supporters out there, too. One love.
Depending on the flavor of the day, the mood of the month, you know, whatever we're into, we wear it, we're proud to wear it, but we put it in a different class of distinction than other designs. And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of deeper discussions about self-esteem, distinctions in class and race. Brands are identifiers as to who we are from head to toe. And it's always like the grass is greener on the other side.
What do you know about this coat?
People getting robbed for that coat. Everybody wants that coat. It's an expensive coat.
I don't feel safe wearing it because I feel like I might get attacked for what I have. This coat right here? Niggas rob people for these coats. They expensive. And the youth nowadays, like around here, like in Harlem or the Bronx, Brooklyn, a lot of like the main tough areas, this is like a big fashion, these coats. So a lot of people get robbed for them, get killed for them.
Some kid just got shot. Where was it?
On Bryant Park.
On Bryant Park with that coat.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Torrens.
And I'm Sandra Bookman. Just a short time ago, police charged 16-year-old Corey Dunton with attempted murder for opening fire on the ice rink at Bryant Park.
Sources say it all started with a fight over a coat and ended with 2 people shot, including a 14-year-old boy whose family fears he might never walk again.
If you know, you've seen it. It's all over the news. If I was to buy my son a coat that costs $600, I'm gonna send him to school with a bulletproof vest.
Back in the days in our era, you got beat up, your stuff got taken. Nowadays, everybody resorts to this crazy thing. Like, I watch kids get shot for jackets. You read about a kid getting shot for Jordans. I mean, it's just crazy. It's disturbing. It's actually really, really disturbing.
The Air Jordan shoe frenzy started Friday morning. People waiting in line to get their hands on the shoes.
In Georgia, 4 people arrested as they tried to get a pair of shoes.
5 cops spraying everybody.
Efren Espinoza just spent $180 for the Air Jordans, but now all he has to show for the shoes are cuts and bruises to his head and chest.
I got an abundance of shoes. So when I see a kid get robbed for a pair of Jordans or shot for a pair of Jordans, sometimes I sit back and look and I'm like, damn.
By the time we hit the 2000s, it was kind of like, wow, you know, you got to watch the trends because of all the traffic and all of the activity that was happening online.
Before, what our influences were confined to what was at our reach. And now with the expansion and the power of the internet, I have access to every fashion, look, brand across the world. So I can be whoever I want to be.
We're in a space where they're exchanging so many ideas that I think that we're getting back into individual looks.
It's no longer, you know, like it's either urban or it's, you know, like it's punk or it's this or that, you know, it's not preppy, it's you know, like all that stuff to me doesn't mean anything now.
In hip-hop fashion right now, people are taking way more risks. They feel empowered with a lot more freedom. It's almost like the more risks you take, the more respect that you get.
Everybody want to be recognized and everybody want to be noticed. I think what really changed fashion for real, to where a lot of things are okay, was that the world embracing homosexuality. It's giving people that would never take the risk in style and fashion, it's giving them the green light now.
People were scared to just express themselves out of fear of being called a name or being considered to be uncool in some way or non-accepted or being, you know, bashed for a reason. Certain people just assumed because I like clothes, I was gay. Now, we've learned to just accept each other's cultures.
The new young guy, he's wearing stuff that's out the box, you know, that's off the block. You know, that's old stuff from across the pond. He's wearing different type of brands.
Rockin', rollin', swaggin' to the max. My bitch a fashion killer, she be busy popping tags. She got a lot of Prada, that Dolce & Gabbana. I can't
see everybody wearing Rockaway, Sean John and Fat Farm. That, you know, became standard to me. That was like normal to the point where it was minimal. I didn't want to do that. It got to things like Prada and Gucci and Ferragamo and Cavalli and Versace, John Richmond, you know, Dolce & Gabbana, those kind of brands.
You know, back when I was running Cross Colors and Karl Kani, the artists were talking about Cross Colors and Karl Kani. So I think it's what was being preached to that consumer and that audience that loves their music. So now it's at a point where it's about Versace and it's about those high-end brands.
Versace, Medusa head on me like I'm Illuminati. I know that you like it. Versace, my neck and my wrist is so sloppy.
I think fashion is cyclic and everything comes back around. We're at a period where we're trying to buy Gucci and MCM, and that happened in the 80s for me. You know, I remember that period. And that's where we're at right now.
Most urban people really don't want things made by other urban people. They want things made by things that they can't attain. They want to buy into a dream just like everybody else does.
I think we as a culture, we aspire to buy the Gucci and the Louis and Yves Saint Laurent because that represents to us success.
While urban brands were for us, by us, we were never always loyal to the brands that we followed. There's always kind of this cachet of, I'm gonna go back to the reliable brands that I'm always used to because somehow those brands have much more staying power. They represent a particular social class that I wanna be at. They represent the ultimate in luxury. And the urban brands, they don't represent the same lifestyle that I aspire to have.
Young people want power, they want status, and they want wealth. Hermes, you have a brand like that. You walk in the store and you see, you know, 75-year-old women, you know, like buying scarves and teacups and saddles, you know, for horses. It's a classic heritage house, you know. That young tastemaker, cool person is buying into a heritage and legacy that, you know, that people aspire to.
Everything comes down to class. The class conversation is bigger than the race conversation. Show a class, it's like, I'm high class. And that's what those brands are, Louis, Gucci, all that. And that's part of the reason why they're very skeptical about, working with musicians or rappers, because we're considered to be lower class than designers.
The organized industry of fashion in, America that I could speak to, it suffers from a bad identity. It wants to parrot what's happening in Europe, right? It has this self-loathing atmosphere where we're never as good as American designers as the French or the Europeans. Why are we waiting for external approval from this gatekeeper? Like, fuck that.
The luxury brands love us. I mean, all the ones that I talk to, they love us. They don't just walk up to me and talk to me about me. I think I spend more time in folks who run fashion houses and all the integral people there, like, talking about, like, what they love about our industry and the people they love.
Lately, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, you have you have a lot of hip hop, rap, and R&B representative people that they love you and they support you. They always come to your show since many years. For me, it's inspiring because, these kids, they're experimental, they all come out. And I like people that are experimental, I like people that are taking risks.
We're not like the traditional designers that's come through these doors. We have never studied under a Ralph or came out of Helmut Lang and did things like that. Like, yeah, our last design job was at Sean John with Puffy. So I think even when we started public school, it was automatically streetwear brand, you're in this box, and we're always like, no, we're trying to be, that's not what we're doing, right? Like, it has nothing to do with Sean John, we work there or things like that. And we've always, humbly tried not to say Sean John sometimes, depending on who you're talking to. Not being ashamed, but you also want to be taken seriously in those fashion talks.
Yeah, but at the same time, we owe a lot to our time spent at Sean John.
Oh, for sure.
My brand is 100% influenced by hip hop. Me, as the next generation, because of the doors that Russell, Puff, and Jay opened, it's only my responsibility that I have to do what I did in music. It's gotta be Ralph level.
Who's to say or give a definition of what fashion is or what category it should be in? If it's great work, it's great work.
Freedom, and your mentality sort of liberates everything because it's a mentality. So if you feel free, then you're probably gonna dress like you're free. If you dress like you're free, then you're probably gonna be different than everybody else because it's untethered. It's not bound by popular or trendy opinion. And that's what freedom is to be yourself.
Fashion is about authentic experiences. So as long as there's authentic experiences and people that are brave enough to have a point of view, there'll be fashion. That's what being an artist is, and that's what being a fashion icon is. Having the ability to do something that no one else is doing. If you do something that someone else is doing, you're not fresh, you're not fly, you're just copying. What's fly is when someone comes in and does something that no one else does or does it first.
To be fresh to me is to be recognized, be recognized for your individual style or be recognized for whatever it is that you're putting on display. And when you are fresh and you are recognized and people notice and even before they notice, when you know it, when you right here know it, you feel like Superman.
Early morning, rising reefer cheaper. You pay the most, but me, I get it cheaper. Strong rapper reefer, rapping in a big cohiba. I get so high, I close my eyes and swear that I saw Jesus. I take another token, goddamn, I feel comatose. I double cup and that's what up, and now I'm leaning, folk. I'm talking any given Sunday, Willie beaming, ho. My bitch say that I get too high and might kill my brain. I tell her that she talks too much and she should get some rain. We used to fuck a lot, but now you just fuss and complain. What a fucking shame. Hit the door and hit the block. Avoid the walking dead, the zombie still hunting rock. My days are wasting time slinging down.
Yo, check this out. I just got a call from my man. My main dog, Manny's in town. When Manny comes to town, we gotta take care of him. He lost his luggage. We're gonna get Manny right for tonight. You wanna go out to the club? We're gonna get Manny right. So let me set my boy up, show you how I do my boy. Man, Manny. Manny. This is gonna be tough. See how I do this dude. Dog. Got you. You know, Manny looked like he had a long day, so I'm gonna keep Manny nice and casual tonight. You know what I'm saying? He looking a little stressed out. I'm gonna brighten him up and brighten his day up a little bit like that. So let me see what I can do with him.
You the Cadillac of fucker, just suck at this rap shit. I'm the Cadillac of suck it, I'm fucking disastrous. We the Hardy and Tom and the plan bomb game. The lead 'em all to the mall.
Gotta keep him tight. Make sure his head is nice and right. He's just missing one thing. Hold on.
And get the hashtag fart noise. I used to give a half fuck,
right.
now I just laugh.
So now Manny's looking good. Eyelashes is right. Manny's out for the club tonight. Me and Manny, we gonna go to Palladium, go to House of Blues, tour the city, go to Mr. Childs. That's what we do. Take care of my boy. Me and Manny all night. That's what it is.
You see them dudes run, it's coming, boy, we body. We
my boy.
OPP, we digging other people's pockets, keep it cool, run the jewels, ain't no other way around it. I want the rings and the chains, run the jewels. I want the watches and the bracelets, run the jewels. We at the table eating, everybody food. Invasion of the chains, that you bend up us a move.
Hey, who wanna run the summer with the jewel runners? Got your girlfriend hotter than a Tucsoners. Everybody tough till they see them tools on them. Then they doing number twos in their true religions. Lord, please don't shoot, they get too religious. Truth is, we go vicious on these stupid pigeons. Pistol pointed at they misses like I killed these bitches. We run the jewels and when we talking pimpin', pay attention.
Run the jewels, we a bit odd. We bad news, you barely get a fat chance for slim odds. You barely get a short plank, the long walks taught like a sawed-off. No laws when I taught, nah. And I'm Kalishnikov spitting. You always take the time to smell the rose when it withered. I say better luck tomorrow, but the horror of your life is me and Mike are just beginning.